Welcome back to my Editor-in-Chief desk, where I help you live and work like a writer. Personal writing connects with readers. Humans love to know what's going on with other humans. We thrive on stories. We thrive on sharing. Sharing is really important, but you can reach a point where you overshare. And vulnerability is not oversharing. I think I'm quoting Brene Brown on that one. I think I talked about that in a very old video, because that is really it. That sums up the whole thing. But what we see online all the time in our culture is, and with social media especially, is that being a hot mess gets attention. And people want attention online. They think, I need to do something to attract attention. So they overshare, they are train wrecks, and people love it. And I don't blame people, and I don't blame the people who are trying to attract attention, because humans crave drama. However, historically, a safer place for drama has been fiction. Right? That's why we created fictional characters in plays and movies, because there's a separation between the human being and the drama. We know it's fake. The audience gets the drama that they crave, the sensational stuff that we all want to watch, that we're drawn to, but it's not affecting an actual human's life. And what's happening nowadays, or that has been happening for years and years and years now, it's not anything new, is that everybody wants to be a star online, and everybody wants to go viral on social media. So they do crazy stuff just to get that attention. But what happens, and we've seen this, so you know what happens when that person wants to stop being a hot mess? What happens when they actually want to get their life together? They have no content to share anymore, and they lose their viewers, and they lose all that attention that they've gained, or people turn on them, or it becomes so personal. I've mentioned in one of my last videos, the one about how to be resilient as a writer, people start taking things personally because they feel that they've put their whole real life online, and when people trash that, it is a personal attack. But they did it, and for good reason, because they wanted that attention. A lot of people get what they want when they put themselves out there like that, but it can be very dangerous in the long run. And it's a very dangerous aspect of our culture when we value that blind attention from that oversharing without thinking. Well, no one's thinking long term, because everyone just wants that. If you hear the snap of my fingers, is that instant gratification. It's that I just want this now. I just want people to pay attention to me now. It's a sad part of our culture, but it's a part of it nonetheless, and we have to adapt to it. So there has to be ways where we can be personal in our content without oversharing and without being self-indulgent. So we do have that distance, we do have that distance, especially if we produce nonfiction content in any way. There has to be a distance between our work and ourselves, so that the criticisms and the praise of our work is about the work and not about our worth or our value. So I have strategies that help us write in a personal way that will connect with people, so that we're individual humans connecting with other individual humans who all have flaws and make mistakes when they talk. But we're not oversharing, and we're not being self-indulgent and making this all about us and our hot mess train wreck life so that people pay attention to it. So I have 7 strategies. And the first one you would probably guess from everything else that I've been talking about recently, is letting your audience guide you. You are serving an audience with your content. So when you're deciding whether or not you should share something, let their needs and their wants and their desires guide you. If sharing something can help the people that you serve, it can be appropriate a lot of the time. But if it's excessive, they don't need to hear it, then you don't need to share it. The second strategy is going into your backstory. People love to hear about other people's journeys, and you can do that in a way that is not oversharing. It's very personal to share your journey, as well as where you currently are in your journey and maybe where you'd like to go. All of that can be personal information that is shared without being without oversharing and without being self-indulgent about it. Because again, if you go back to letting your audience guide you, which is really the foundation for all of these strategies, you can determine, motorcycle you might have heard, very loud one. You can determine when you let your audience guide you, is this part of my backstory something that could help them, or is it just extra vulnerable information that they don't need to know? It doesn't really matter. It's just sort of sensational and they don't need to hear it. So let your audience guide you throughout all of these strategies. The third one is to have a point or a goal for any story that you tell. In my video about blog post topics, when I suggested telling stories, the number one thing that I say when you're telling a story is have a point, have a goal, and then go through your beginning, middle, or an end. So whenever you're telling stories to your audience, make sure there is a point that will help them or benefit them in some way. If you're telling a story that isn't going to help your audience, it's safe to say most of the time that's self-indulgent. That can be just for sensational stuff that people do to get attention. And again, I have to say, I'm not knocking get attention, because I work in marketing. There's a really important component about driving attention, but you have to do it in a way that is supported by integrity. You attract people to something of value for them. You don't need to attract people to something that's just going to be a train wreck that is ultimately going to hurt you as a person. So again, keeping this distance between ourselves and our work is really important. I went off on a little tangent there, breaking my own rule about having a point. Tangents are fine sometimes. They work better in video content than writing content, especially. So if you are writing content, have a point. The next strategy is to set boundaries before you start creating anything. This is just having a little check-in with yourself, being self-aware, and determining, or really creating a list before you do anything. Maybe this should have been the number one strategy besides letting your audience guide you. We'll have this one go hand in hand with letting your audience guide you. Have a list of your go-to things that you want to share. You think they're always going to be relevant and appropriate for your audience. And then have a list of things that you know you want to keep to yourself, so that if you find yourself ever being tempting to share them, or they pop up in your content, you can go back to your list and say, hey, I originally made this rule that said I'm not going to go there. I think it's important to stick to that. You know, you might break it and share anyways, but at least you have a check-in point to make a calculated decision of whether or not you want to break that rule or break that boundary. But it can save you a lot of trouble later on if you just initially upfront create a boundary list for yourself when creating content. The next strategy is to Choose very specific language because you are talking to a very specific person. That is going to create that personal connection between you and your reader. If you're talking to a very specific person when you write, which is what you should do every time you write, you can choose language and examples and jokes and just scenarios that appeal to the person that you're writing to. That's going to create very personal writing without you oversharing anything. The next strategy is to avoid extremes, and this usually comes in the form of excessive praise or bad-mouthing. If you stay away from praise or bad-mouthing a lot in your content, you're going to be ahead of the game, because that is a lot of the sensational stuff that we see. There's now banging noises outside, so we are rolling with it. Am I oversharing by telling you about the noises that are happening right now? So yeah, avoiding extremes will serve you well. Don't excessively praise or badmouth yourself or other people. Just stay away from anything that builds drama. Instead, do what I talked about in the last strategy. Focus on that specific person that you're writing to and choose the details that they're really going to love. That is going to create a more intimate personal connection with your writing, more than bad-mouthing someone or yourself, or praising someone or someone else or yourself. And the last strategy that I have is to show the parts of your journey where you've overcome struggles to empower someone else to overcome their struggles or their and overcome struggles to achieve the transformation that they want to achieve. So this sort of goes back to your backstory as well when you're choosing what to share or what not to share. If it's going to help someone, use those details. It's not going to be oversharing if the goal is results oriented. If you show what you did to help someone else do something similar, again, you'll want to check with your boundary list if there are things that you probably shouldn't divulge, but giving an overall or general picture of things that you've overcome can help. And again, when you pick specific language, it's going to help form a connection with your reader. So you can go into more vulnerable details without sharing the parts that overexpose you. If there are, maybe there aren't parts that overexposed you, but you'll know because you've made a boundary list. So really, all of these 7 strategies work together, and they just help get you in the mindset of, before I create content, I am going to be aware of when I possibly could get into self-indulgent territory that doesn't serve my audience. So that's it. And this is actually the last video of the Masterpiece blogging series. I have 9 other videos to check out if you've gotten to this point and it is the first video that you have seen. This is actually going to be the last video that I'm filming of me talking. So if you want to see more, go and check out the other 9, or I have 200 other ones that you could check out as well on this channel. Thank you for watching. Bye.